Okay. Mm, mm.
60 Minutes Rewind.
This is a tale of two cities side by side, one predominantly white and middle class, the other almost exclusively black and poor. It's a tale first told by a small newspaper in the virtually all-white community of Belleville, Illinois, about what happened to blacks from neighboring East St. Louis when they came to town. We first heard about it when the small newspaper won several major journalism awards and began losing a lot of subscribers. Belleville, Illinois is a typical Midwestern community filled with civic pride. It has annual parades, good schools, strong, stable neighborhoods, and it's one of the last places in America where you can still find the original Golden Arches. In many ways, Belleville is a picture of white middle-class contentment. But right over there on the other side of this highway is East St. Louis, Illinois. It is 98% black, and almost every one of its 40,000 residents is receiving welfare or some other form of public assistance. It also has the highest per capita murder rate in the country, higher than New York City or Washington, D.C.
It's in the top 10 as far as being the most crime-ridden city in the country. It's in the top 10. That's not my fault. I just don't want that filtering over into this city.
Bob Hurst is Belleville's chief of police, and like a lot of people in town, he was born and raised in East St. Louis. But that was before white flight, before blacks began moving into East St. Louis during the 60s, and before whites began moving out to Belleville.
I don't want Belleville to become another East St. Louis, and neither does the Belleville residents.
That fear is so widespread that a few years ago, when a crime wave swept the wealthy Signal Hill area of Belleville, residents got together and spent their own money to build a wrought iron gate right on the edge of the city. This is East St. Louis right over here on the other side of this road.
Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir.
If I lived in East St. Louis and I was black, I'd look at this and I'd say, the message is pretty clear. Those people don't want me over here.
I would probably feel that way.
Does that bother you?
No, sir. I didn't put it up.
But you approve of it?
I don't disapprove of it.
Blacks in East St. Louis got the message that they aren't welcome in Belleville a long time ago. But Belleville is hard to avoid. Many blacks from East St. Louis work there, and it's the county seat, where they have to pay taxes, get marriage licenses, and conduct all manner of public business. And they have long suspected that the all-white Belleville Police Department had an unwritten policy designed to discourage them from coming to town.
It's a known fact in East St. Louis, don't ride in Belleville after dark.
Why?
Because you will be pulled over. Especially if it's a black males that are involved.
Constance Massey was giving two male friends of hers a ride home to East St. Louis after work when they were pulled over by a Belleville policeman.
He said, who is that in the car with you? I seen beer. I said, we don't drink, sir. And he said, what kind of drugs you got in there? And they searched us. They threw us up against the car, patted us down, took my back seat out of my car.
But police didn't find any drugs or alcohol. Why do you think you stopped him?
Because I was black. Definitely because I was black. And I had two black gentlemen in the car with me.
Did he say anything to you that would lead you to that conclusion?
Definitely, because he asked me what was I doing up in Belleville. Like I wasn't good enough to be up here at all.
Reporters at the Belleville News-Democrat, the city's local paper, had long heard stories about police harassment of blacks. But in 1991, managing editor Greg Edwards says the paper received a tip from a former policeman that seemed to confirm all those rumors.
If you were black and came to Belleville, there was a good chance you were going to be stopped, questioned, maybe ticketed for a minor violation, maybe arrested and taken to jail.
After a 4-month investigation that involved dozens of interviews with anonymous police sources and motorists, and after going through more than 175,000 traffic tickets, the News-Democrat was able to document that Belleville Police Chief Bob Hurst had organized a special 4-man patrol to target and harass black motorists from East St. Louis.
Some of them had been stopped and not ticketed, simply questioned, what are you doing here? Others were handcuffed, tossed into a police car. One woman told us that she was pregnant, had handcuffs put on her and her arms put behind her back, and she was shoved roughly into a police car. Others told us that there were frequent references to them when they were stopped as that sort of language.
The paper's big break came when reporter Carolyn Tuff stumbled upon an important piece of information. Belleville's police department writes the driver's race on the top of every ticket it issues. So she was able to segregate all the tickets written to blacks. And when she compared that information to the 4 men assigned to the unit, this is what she discovered.
75% of all tickets written by these 4 men were to blacks. And we have a 7% population of blacks in Belleville. So the disparity there is striking, if not alarming.
They were going out looking for blacks.
Yes, they were.
No other way to interpret that information.
I don't think so.
Tuff says that blacks were cited mostly for non-moving violations, like driving with an expired license or without insurance. Violations that you wouldn't be able to detect unless you'd actually stop someone and pulled them over.
Right.
And from police sources, she learned something else.
For every person that was pulled over and ticketed, this unit pulled a handful over and didn't ticket them. The idea was to let the black people know that they weren't welcome in Belleville.
There's no way we targeted blacks to keep them out of Belleville. No way. And no officer on this police department was ever issued an order like that from me.
Chief Hurst doesn't deny he organized the Special Patrol Unit during that crime wave several years ago on Signal Hill. But he insists his orders were to target all suspicious-looking motorists, black and white. But the more he talked, the more he seemed to contradict himself. First, he told us what the state police told him.
The Signal Hill area was being infiltrated by the black gangs out of East St. Louis. And they would come up here in order to be initiated into the gang and either steal a car, break into a house, rape, rob, home invasion, whatever.
And that any black males that were driving around the Signal Hill area were potential suspects.
That's correct.
Because they were black?
Because they were in that area and because they were black, yes, sir.
You seem to be saying that being a black male and driving a car in the white area of Signal Hill is probable cause to believe that they're going to commit a crime.
Not necessarily so. If there's something wrong with their car, we would stop them. Or if there was more than one in the car, we would stop them.
But not every black's a
That's correct.
gang member.
That's correct.
But you're saying that essentially you were stopping all the blacks.
Not all of them. No, we didn't stop all of them. We stopped most of them. If they were
Two
in
black
that area.
males riding in a car.
If they were in that area.
It turns out street gangs from East St. Louis had nothing to do with the raping and robbing. It was all the work of one man, and he had no connection to the street gangs. Neither does Zach Conklin. He's a district manager for Texaco Oil in Belleville, who's been stopped by police there several times.
You say anything that made you believe that he stopped you because you were black?
Tell me to get back down that way.
What do you mean by that?
Get back down towards East St. Louis. That's what he meant by that.
Last year, he was cited for 3 non-moving violations, including driving with an expired license and no automobile insurance, charges that were untrue and later dropped. Now he uses back roads when he drives to Belleville.
It's happened more to me than once. It's happened a few days before this when I had my son in the car and I got pulled over for no apparent reason at all. Then my son asked me, "Daddy, why did they pull you over?" And
What do you tell him?
I told him I don't know. And he goes again, "Why did they pull you over, Daddy?" And, what can I tell my 5-year-old son, about that?
I have to tell you, Chief, if I was a black male, I think I would consider it harassment. If all I was doing was driving through a white neighborhood in Belleville and I got stopped by the police every time I went through.
Well, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion. But if you lived in that area, you would want the police department, the sheriff's office, and the state police to be doing something about it. And that's what we did.
And the people of Belleville seem glad he did. Chief Hurst has never been more popular.
He keeps the crime out. I don't know why the news media is always on to him about the blacks.
If it weren't for Robert Hurst, then we would have all the crime, and we might as well just move down the hill.
To East St. Louis.
Right.
Right. I agree. I think that East St. Louis has a definite problem, and we don't want it here.
What are you talking about when you say you want to keep East St. Louis out or keep it out? Are you saying what you want to keep out is black people?
No. We want to keep the crime rate out, the crime problems, the drug problems, the murders, the burglaries, the car thefts. That's what we don't want in Belleville.
I live in East St. Louis. How can they distinguish me from somebody else who may commit a crime? They have to treat me the same way that they would treat any other citizen.
Reverend Johnny Scott is president of the NAACP's East St. Louis chapter. We interviewed him along with the Urban League's local representative, James Buford.
The fact of the matter is, there was a crime wave. People in Belleville were terrified, and the police chief's job, he says, was to try and crack down on it.
That's a cop-out.
But what's he supposed to do? What's the chief of police supposed to do?
He's supposed to investigate and prosecute under the law of the land. When whites commit crimes in Belleville, does that mean whites are then run out of Belleville? That happened in Dodge City in the Wild West. They have techniques and strategies within the law without harassing, without violating citizens' rights.
And what kind of a reaction did the News Democrat get for performing what it thought was a public service? Well, it won a lot of major newspaper awards and a lot of grief back in Belleville.
The reaction was almost totally against the News Democrat, not against the policemen who were doing the ticketing or against the city administration that allegedly ordered it, but against us.
But what they were saying was, you may think we've got a problem, we don't think we've got a problem.
Some of them said exactly that.
And some of them said a lot more. The newsroom was flooded with angry calls and threats. Local businesses pulled their ads, and more than 1,000 readers canceled their subscriptions, a huge number for such a small paper. But it kept on digging.
They're there to write stories, make news, and the hell with what happens to the community.
Belleville Mayor Richard Brower really hated the article about city hiring practices. In its entire history, 175 years, Belleville has never had a black employee.
Didn't that strike you as strange? You've been mayor here since 1979.
That's right.
No black faces in City Hall?
No.
You never noticed it?
No, I never noticed it. Exactly
You didn't
right.
know you needed a black employee. Is that what you're saying?
We needed a black employee. No, we didn't have any quota systems here or anything like that. No. What do you mean? We didn't
have one.
Since the News Democrat ran that story, the city of Belleville finally hired its first black employee, a sanitation worker.
He was one of two finalists, the other finalist being my nephew, and he was hired. My nephew wasn't.
Does that upset you?
No, it doesn't upset me. I don't have any problem with it. I don't have any problem with it. My sister probably does, but I don't.
The city's decision to finally hire a black employee was not exactly voluntary. It was done under the threat of legal action by the Illinois State Department of Human Rights. Belleville settled out of court, agreeing to hire an affirmative action officer and to send the entire Belleville Police Department to racial sensitivity training, including Chief Hurst, although some might say it doesn't seem to have done much good.
In my own heart and mind, I know I've done what's right for the people of the city of Belleville. And if I had it to do over again, I would do it again tomorrow the same way, Steve. I guarantee you.
Okay. Any reaction to what you saw?
One thing for me that was very interesting because that's the area where we moved from. That's where we were living up there in Belleville. Okay. And to go back and see this news program and to know that even when our people were in East St. Louis and all the white people from East St. Louis left and created Belleville, and how, you know, when you're driving through the city and you know in the history of what you're dealing with, you know, what as it was before, it is still the same way.
Well, Mississippi, look like they cut brothers. He's back now.
Okay. I don't know what happened with that. What in the world? Okay, so yeah, but that's exactly where we came from. And, how it is then is the same thing how it is now. You have a little bit more Black people living in Belleville, but the attitude is still the same. That attitude is still there, that they don't want no Black folks there.
So I just gotta ask, how did you get there?
That's where my wife was living. That where she was living. So I came from Nashville to there with her.
Okay, okay, all right. Sister Vernell, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So when I popped in, I guess it might have been shortly after the video started, after you introduced it. So I'm watching it and I'm thinking, well, what year is this? Like, what year is this from? And then it dawned on me, like, it doesn't really matter because the attitudes that are expressed by the white people in this video, from the citizens on the street to the mayor to the sheriff, I don't think they're far from the attitudes that a lot of white folks have right now. So that could have been in 1985, 95, or last week.
I definitely agree with that, without a doubt.
But what year
Anyone
was it
else?
from?
You know what? I don't know. Looking at the tape, it's gotta be the early 80s or, very late 70s. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
year it was
I
though.
was
It's one of those few minutes
I was
rewinds.
thinking from the way that the folks were dressed that it might have been like early to mid 80s by the way they were dressed, those folks on the street. But I could be off because that's outside my culture in terms of fashion. Um, but yeah, but I'm not at all I'm not at all surprised at anything that was said. It's deplorable. And I think that what it shows, 93. Oh no, that was a different video. But I think what it shows is that oftentimes when politicians are doing things that are just blatantly white supremacist, people want to like point their fingers at those politicians and they forget that people who voted for them empower them, and so I was glad that this video like talked to some regular folk on the street to really see that the way this sheriff was functioning, the way this mayor was functioning, is because they had been empowered by the voters who put them in that position. So just like, the crazy chick, in Congress right now that everybody was talking about, I can't remember her name, but my thing is, yeah, she's just one person and everybody's pointing a finger at her, but she is representing a lot of people who voted for her, who knew what she was about and voted for her anyway. So it's more than just that one politician. And I yield. I'm sure.
Yeah, the video was January 10th, 1993. So not that long ago. And you're absolutely right when you're talking about these people having support. When Mitt Romney came out and this weekend, he said if Trump runs again, Trump will win. He's gonna win the Republican nomination. And I think that we lose sight of the fact that 70 million Americans voted for that fool. So they're definitely behind. They got some power behind them, some support behind them. And it's just what it is. It's ugly, but it's who they are.
Absolutely. And and I if and I would say if Biden continues down the path that he's continuing down, then if Trump ran again, he would definitely win because not only of his own support base, but the Democrats that Biden is alienating with some of the policies that he's putting into place, who supported him, and he is alienating them, and so they may not vote for him again. So
Yeah, the thing is that for the Democrats, it's about getting the vote out. And if they can't get that vote out, because the Republican vote is going to be solid, you know what they're coming with, so getting that vote out. So that'll be interesting.
Yep.
I'm reminded by looking at that the police chief. I'm reminded of the police chief that was interviewed surrounding the Emmett Till killing. And I've always asked my students, who do you think that these white folk in Money, Mississippi said, no, 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 no. We can't allow him to talk because he's too rough. Put this guy up there. And the police chief got up there and said, we have no problem with our southern niggas until they go up north and the NAACP talk to them and they come back down here. These are unredeemable, virulent racists, who really don't care, not one bit. And I was thinking about writing a piece about this for Manhood, Race, and Culture, about the whole thing of how they're actually going after these January 6th anarchists. And my preliminary thought is to start it off with somehow using Samuel L. Jackson, A Time to Kill, when Matthew McConaughey asked the jurors to close their eyes and imagine that the girl who was raped was white. It seems like unless it's hitting white America, the vast majority of whites don't care. They don't care enough to say anything and let alone do anything. It's got to touch home.
Well, James, that is because in white America, their moral center allows them to treat other people like shit. I mean, I'm sorry, like less than human. Their moral center allows them to think that they are on the top and everybody else is beneath them. And whatever issues Black people or other non-white people are going through, that has no bearing on them. They have nothing to do with it because this is just how the world is. Their moral center allows them to do the most heinous things to people, to Black people, to do the most heinous things and benefit from other white people doing the most heinous things, and they still see themselves as moral and good people because their moral center allows that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The thing is that their reality, and of course it being a reality that benefits them in every way possible, they perceive that to be the only reality, the only possible reality that is out there, and it's got to be a heck of a thing to have been born into a privileged position and maintain that your entire life.
It is.
There's kind of you kind of can't, I'm not gonna say you can't blame them, but it's definitely different. But okay.
It is, James. And many of them may not even realize it. Like they've been so indoctrinated in white supremacy, in the way they were socialized the whole time, that, no one, their parents don't say, you're on the top of the racial hierarchy and we're all white supremacists. They don't say that. They just socialize them to believe that. They just, it is the way that it infects their minds and how they view the world is pretty insidious, But I'm gonna stop talking and look at this cute pooch on the screen here, sharing the frame with Carlton, because yeah, please introduce whoever this is, Carlton. Is that allowed, James?
Yeah, Vernell is you have Carlton. I'm not sure about Sister DC, Regina, or Brother Muhammad. But I can tell you for sure, you got some dog lovers up in here whose heart probably just fluttered when they saw you. I thought it was doggone one of them dummies, one of them mannequins that you put your hand in the back of them and move it around. I wasn't sure what that was. That's why I leaned forward. But go ahead and you know,
Yeah, this is Sammy. He's a 9-year-old poodle, poodle mixed with a little bit of Maltese. Yeah, he's a hot ghetto mess.
What's his name?
Name is Sammy.
Sammy.
Yes. He can't, the nigga can't see anymore, but he can still raise hell.
So cute. So cute. You got a shirt on, Sammy?
He's got his vest on. You know,
Oh, okay.
I don't like pulling him by the neck because he's so little. So I pull him, we pull him here at the body. Yes, Jones. Yeah. We don't pull dogs by the neck, man. That's barbarian shit from 1925, man. We know better now.
look here, man. I know I'm outnumbered now because Regina talking about she got some kind of animal that she love. I know Damon. He done had a series of dogs.
The only dogs I like are the big dogs, man. I'm looking at the dog. I'm like, yeah, that's a cat that barks. No offense. But German Shepherd or something like that's my dog there, man. I like because if something jumps off, I'm sorry that Sammy's not scaring me, man.
That's why I have guns, man. I don't need a dog. I got guns. I mean, what are we doing here?
Willy nilly like that, man.
No, we shoot here.
The reason why the police are hassling them.
This is Texas. We shoot first and ask questions later.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
But nah, we don't carry guns. But no, but on the back to the topic that it was interesting. First of all, I knew it was from the 90s because I saw like the Corsicas and I saw a Tempo or a Taurus. So I knew it was like
Hey, brother. Hey, the Tempo. It was a hell of a ride.
Okay, but a lot of it comes down to just straight up ignorance and the segregated societies that we live in. All right, because I just thought about it today when I went back to work in the building for the first time today, and I realized that other than the police and the people that are gentrifying Bed-Stuy, I didn't see or interact or have a conversation with a white person all last week. And a lot of people in cities in the United States, that's their reality. And their only introduction to people of other cultures, not just black and white, but for example, I had zero conversations with Asians or anybody. Like, we are a very segregated society, so we are very ignorant of other people. So the only image that we have of one another is what we see on TV, what we read, what we hear, and what's magnified. All right. And now I don't know much about East St. Louis, but being a Dolphins fan, I know Brian Cox used to play for the Dolphins, and they talk about East St. Louis and how bad it was. Okay. And everybody on this call know that there's certain neighborhoods, unfortunately, where our people live that you just ain't going to comfortably and easily. So if we feel that, imagine what these white folk who don't see, have a conversation, not excusing it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but until I don't even know how you get past it, but really just break down that caste system. Until we break down that caste system that is what's called the United States, with us unfortunately on the bottom. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm reading that book. I'm in the middle of reading that book by I forgot the woman's name, caste and something, right? Until we break that and we put better images of ourselves out there, it is what it is. East St. Louis just is rough. I'm not gonna lie, and I haven't even been there, but I haven't heard much positive about it. Okay, the only equivalent that I have is Brownsville in Brooklyn. Okay, and when I gotta go to East New York for whatever reason, I drive around Brownsville. I'm not driving through it. No, not at all. No way. No, and I'm not walking through it. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of our people who don't give a damn about black power, black anything, and just to be brutally honest, will do you more harm than white folk. Because in my worldview, I've been beat up by more black people than more white people. Okay. And I've had more negative interactions in my life with black people than white people. And that's the reality, and white people, on the other hand, they have their little thing and they don't want to get it messed up by what they see on TV, in movies. And if we're talking about 93, that's when they have fresh on their mind where cats were beating the hell out of people out in Los Angeles. After you have that fear thrown up there as well. So, I'm not excusing it. It's just one of those things that we have, because there's no excuse for just hassling innocent people that are just driving through a neighborhood. There's no excuse for that. But it's just, it happens because we're so ignorant about our about people that we live in this country with, but we don't necessarily live near. Because those white people, they probably don't, well, not even probably, if no black people worked in the place, no black people feel comfortable going through the place, the only introduction they have to black people is what they see on TV and what they assume. Okay, and I yield with that.
So essentially, you're saying our supposed melting pot is nothing more than a fruit salad, basically. You can pick them out basically one at a time, and they're essentially separated in their own ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I live in New York City where there's a little bit of everybody. I got people here that I don't even know what the hell they are. And at the end of the day, until they started gentrifying neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy, Harlem, only white people I saw were the police. Just to be honest. Lived in East New York for years. James, you came to visit me. How many white people you saw walking up and down Hageman Avenue? Zero.
None.
But this is supposed to be, as David Dinkins said, the great mosaic with a little bit of everybody. And we have Indian people, Chinese people, Japanese people. I don't know what the hell you are people, but they don't live next door or they didn't live next door to me until gentrification became a thing and they realized that they could have brownstones for a lot less. But if they had more money, they would most likely be in Park Slope. So yeah, I mean, and just think about it. What are truly melting pot neighborhoods anywhere in the United States, where it's sort of like an even distribution of people?
They're hard to find. I mean, there's a few I know here in Houston, but they're hard to find.
Other than my coworkers, I have zero white friends. I have zero white people that I have a conversation with on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And even my white coworkers, I talk to them on a need to talk to basis. They invited me out for a drink today. I said, nah, man, I got a drink at home.
So social.
No, man, we have a rule. We don't drink around white folks, man. Nah, we don't do that. I don't violate that rule. Nah. You don't drink around white folks. Seriously, you don't. No.
I want the conversation to keep on going. I want y'all to keep going with the conversation. I'm sharing my screen. You all know Aaron Magruder, the genius brother behind the Boondocks. Well, he also did a story called Birth of a Nation, and it's about East St. Louis, Illinois, and how they decided they're going to break away and all the crazy things that happened. I'm just going to, I found the cover of it here. If you're interested in reading something that is absolutely hilarious, you can see they got James Brown, Malcolm, and Dr. King, and Tupac is on a coin, Muhammad Ali. They literally created their own Black nation, and the crazy zany things that happened to them, in doing that. So if you want a funny read, Birth of a Nation, if you can get and this is one of the strange things about that book. you can get the hardcover for $14, $15. A paper copy is going to cost you like 550. So, yeah, strange. So,
Yeah. Now, so what was going on with that picture in Harlem of the white people, David? I was waiting to ask you this all week. What was going on with that foolishness?
There were white people in Harlem.
So apparently there was like a cookbook or something like that, and it was like a taste of Harlem. It was 5 white folks on the cover of it.
Oh, well, white people already took over Harlem, bro. It's over. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Bed-Stuy's next. You know, because what wound up happening, first of all, there used to be a point where you wouldn't, unless you were the police, you were not going through Harlem. Okay, then what happened was gentrification happened, where co-ops, started with co-ops, then became condos, then people started buying brownstones, and then, you know, as you live there, you want a lot of the goods and services that you enjoy. They didn't want to leave their neighborhood, so you saw restaurants that catered to them starting to make that. There's a gigantic Whole Foods on 125th Street.
Wow.
In Harlem?
Yes, in Harlem. There's a Red Lobster in Harlem, but we up in there. But
Time out, hold flag. There's a Red Lobster with the cheddar biscuits. The fam ain't eating cheddar biscuits, but Harlem's eating cheddar biscuits. Okay.
And there's an Abercrombie and Fitch on 125th Street. Yeah, I mean, all of it. Yeah, a lot of it is changed.
Oh,
you know, every time I go,
Abercrombie and Fitch in Harlem.
Abercrombie and Fitch on 125th
Harlem's no longer really black, man. You know.
And yeah, but saying at the end of the day, it wasn't really black. What it was is these Jewish cats, they pretty much had it, and they were renting to us, and they were absentee landlords. They weren't, you know, let it be run down and just get money from the city, and that was it.
Brother Jeffrey put a question in the chat for you.
Me?
For Damon. You muted yourself.
It's not that far. The Apollo is between 8th and 7th. Well, is on 125th Street between 8th and 7th, and the Whole Foods is right on the corner of 125th and Lenox. So that's about 2 blocks away.
Oh, man, it's in the heart of Harlem. Damn. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's CVS. I mean, yeah, you can't tell the difference between 125th Street and 86th Street.
Yeah.
And Bed-Stuy is slowly but surely going that same way, because it's like because Harlem is in Manhattan and money making Manhattan, so most of the
What impact did Clinton moving his office there have on things?
Nah, I ain't pay attention to Clinton. Nobody paid attention to Clinton. Yeah, nobody pay attention to him really. I mean, he there, but nobody really pays him any mind.
Yeah. I was telling people kind of the same thing was going on, you know, Jones out in Purview, that Houston's growing so fast that Houston's growing towards where Purview was, you know, when I was a young boy, Purview was country. I mean, it was very, very rural, and it's still pretty rural to this day. But what you're seeing is a lot of those old stalwarts of the community are dying out, and a lot of their kids are selling off their homes, you know, for not as much as they really should be selling it for. And I'm seeing white folks moving to Purview because they're anticipating the growth coming from Houston out there, because Houston only can grow one way, which is north and west, because you can't grow any further south. Yeah, there was nothing out there. I mean, literally to the nearest Walmart, if you didn't want to go to the one in Hempstead, you had to go like 25 minutes into Houston, or 30 minutes into Houston to get to Walmart. And then when they built the outlet mall in Cypress, that changed the game. Now they built the third loop around Houston, which is about to make it even worse. And so, you know, a lot of old retired professors that are all dying out. We're seeing the same thing happening in Purview, where people don't want to hold on, don't want to do any work, don't want to have to, you know, keep the houses up. So they sell and get rid of it and run away and go gamble or whatever black folks are doing these days. And they're losing out on a crap ton of money because they refuse to hold on and play it smart. Listen, if you gotta sell, you gotta sell, but make them crackers pay at least. Make them pay. Make them when they pay each other. That's my feelings on it.
Yeah, I mean, but then the other thing, the funny part about it, and going back to our segregated society, so yeah, they're gentrifying these neighborhoods and they're rushing in full force but they're not sending their children to the schools in the neighborhood. Nope. They
So,
send them,
and it's
they
funny,
send
we were
them
having this
to private
conversation with
schools,
somebody.
or they figure out some other way to get their children to go to schools on like the Upper West Side and what have you. But yeah, no, it's not like they came in the Harlem, they came in the, like for example, I think my daughter goes to school in Bed-Stuy. A lot of white people here in Bed-Stuy, but in that school, I think there was two white girls in the entire school of 400 some odd girls. Okay, with all these white folks walking around here. Okay, and as a matter of fact, it's down to one because the one left after first.
Yeah, I mean,
grade.
they're going to Saint somebody school, you know, something like that. And they're not putting anything back into the community like that. They're just there because it's convenient, it's close, and they have everything they need to be comfortable, basically, at this point. You know, so, you know, you're seeing the same thing here in Houston. I mean, Third Ward and Fifth Ward are being gentrified left and right, and those kids aren't going to Yates or the Kashmere, places like that. They're going to St. John's. They're going to the Straight Jesuit, Incarnate Ward Academy. They're going, you know, they're not putting their kids in public school down there.
No,
So,
what,
yeah.
what is
So
this
even
that
though they're neighbors, they're still
ward now?
segregated.
What are they calling the Fifth Ward now? The something corridor, the economic corridor,
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, you
Mhm.
know, they call it the Fifth Ward. Yeah.
But the Fifth Ward, that's where Scarface and them are from, right?
Ghetto boys.
Acres Home.
I mean, even Acres Homes is getting gentrified too.
Yeah, yeah. Acres Homes is in many ways it's interesting because these people have bought 3, 4, 5 lots,
Right.
and they're putting a house in the middle of it and putting an iron fence all around it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see, like, especially, you know, going to Third Ward in Houston and just like seeing how gentrified that neighborhood is clearly is, especially over there by Emancipation Park. They got the 3-story homes. It's a whole bunch of white people. I remember I was driving around there 2 years ago. This is around homecoming. I was just driving around the neighborhood late at night around 11 o'clock, and I saw white people walking their dog and running outside. I'm like, in the hood at this time of the night? Like,
yeah,
like
different.
Yeah, it's real different. And like you said, like they're not sending them children to Yates or Dowling Middle School or McGregor or Worthing. They're going to either Lamar or going to the Jesuit schools or the Hockey Days and things of that nature. But yeah, it's sad. I mean, because even in Houston, like if you go down Alameda, like Alameda's like almost like the only piece of Black history that's left in the neighborhood. But even still, it's still gentrified. I mean, because if the further you go down Alameda, down 288, you're heading towards the medical center, and then you got the lofts, the 3-story homes, and if you go the other way, you're going towards downtown, and again, it's still gentrified. You know, a lot of those Black businesses are it's hard to maintain and sustain even over there. So it's sad. It's real sad. And then it's like you got like the old original houses next to these 500,000 houses. So
And where are Black folks? They're actually in the suburbs. They're actually in Section 8 housing in the damn suburbs.
Yeah, that's
let that sink in.
They're like in Katy.
Yeah, they're in Katy. They're in Pearland.
Katy, Pearland. Yeah.
Well, see,
let that sink in.
The other thing too, though, and how this winds up happening, and going back to the video once again, is that we're talking about all these neighborhoods where a lot of us live, but there's a difference between living there and owning it. When you live there, you still at the mercy. Wait, hold tight for 1 second, Boogie. I'm in the middle of a sentence.
Sorry.
So what I'm saying is, when you live somewhere, you don't have much say. You know, they tell you, you got to bounce up out of here because I want somebody else here. You got to bounce. When you own it, it's different. Because think about it. Neighborhoods where you have housing projects, don't nobody own anything in a project. No, it's not yours. It belongs to the city. So yeah, you live there, but you don't own it. So think about Chicago, where they say, you know what, we're going to just knock down Cabrini Green. What could you do about it? Now, this house here that I live in and own, you can't knock this down unless US Bank, if I don't pay US Bank, they can do it. But I own it. It's different. And a lot of people were renting, but they didn't. And then when you had a lot of our people that owned the homes, unfortunately, well, not we, I'm not going to put we in it because I didn't do stuff like this. People, what they did is oh, so-and-so got arrested. I got to put money up for their bail. I don't have any money, but we could take out another mortgage on the house. Until you take out so many mortgages, you can't afford to pay. And so-and-so who wants to come stay with you, not kicking in anything, and to the point where you just can't afford to hold it anymore. And then a lot of it was the older people who had it, and they were like, "Yo, forget this, I got to sell it." And you get offered the right price, and they didn't see long range because, yeah, I've seen houses go in Harlem. They started out at like $400 something thousand. Now them houses are worth $3 million. Same house that was built in 1899. How did it jump exponentially just like that? And why didn't those people that sold it get the $3 million that these people are getting now? Because they got in, for these gentrifiers got in at $400,000, $500,000, and they said, well, now it's ours, and we're putting all of this stuff here. And now on top of that, because we have it and we have all these goods and services, now it's worth this much, because all real estate is about location, 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 and what's there. So that's something else to be got. So now these people in this community there, what they see in East St. Louis and what they know about East St. Louis, regardless of how ignorant it is, they don't want that near them. Mm-hmm. They don't want their property value going down. That's the key word, is saying, I don't want a whole bunch of you-know-who's walking around in my neighborhood because that lowers my property value. And that's the conversation they have with each other. And we're not in a position to fight it. And then we're trying to say, well, I'm not like them, but we know the thems that we're talking about.
Well, see, my question is,
that's just a sad reality, you know.
When you look at,
and I'm not playing check. Go get a book. Go get one of those books, man.
You look at the dichotomy between the Black community and the white community. The question I have, the reverberating question, is there any hope for the Black people in East St. Louis? You know, or are they just out of luck?
I mean, go ahead, Brunel. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I recall what one of the Black folks that was interviewed said in the video, and his thing was, there's laws around how to there are laws, and their thing was follow the law. Rounding up every Black man that drives through the city because there is a crime spree, like that's outside of the bounds of the law. Like actual, do detective work and find a person who's been committing the crimes. But to just say that every Black man that drives through the town is a suspect, is outside the bounds of the law. So for the people, in East St. Louis in this situation, the law should be applied to everyone equally. It's only because we're Black, nobody's, pulling over white men, every time one of them goes and shoots up a school or something, or a movie theater, they're not, treating them in the same way that they're treating Black folk, so that part there. And then in terms of like what's going on in some of these Black neighborhoods, because, Damon has a point about the fact that we know that there are some predominantly Black neighborhoods that, you just don't go in those neighborhoods. They got a lot of high crime or some other stuff going on that you don't want to be around. So at some point, we got to say, what's going on in those areas? What's going on in those neighborhoods? Is the answer to just leave them to whatever, to their devices? Or are we saying we got to try to reduce this crime and try to make these neighborhoods better? Like, I don't know what the answer is to that.
You know, I really think that coming from there and going to their city council meetings and listening to what's going on and watching what's going on, I would really say that if there's not a change in mindset, then it's useless. There's generations of our people that will never experience what real life is all about. You have
Say, Brother Muhammad, when you said change in mindset, are you talking about black minds or the
yes,
white?
sir. Yes, sir. No, I'm talking about the black ones because the city is run by all black people. The mayor is black, the city council is black. So everybody that's in authority in these things are black people. They do have a problem when it comes to getting things from the county because the county, of course, is ran by the white people. But there's a lot of things that they can do, on the city level that they're afraid to make waves. They're afraid to say this or do that because it may make the people in the county upset. And it's like they have a strong desire to try to please the leadership in the county when the county has clearly left you and went on about their business. And so you have nonprofit organizations coming into the city and doing what they want to do, and then coming to the city council meetings and saying, well, we're here, we're doing this, and this is what you will do. And the mayor and the city council like, well, we didn't even know you were here in the city operating. So these white organizations that come there, they come in, with their own agenda, and they make city government bow down to them. So it's unfortunate that in this day and age that we're in, we have those that are quote unquote in leadership, but are afraid to use the power that their office says that they have. And this is a collective failure, not just one mayor or not just one member of the city council. It's a collective failure on them all. So until that fear is removed, this problem that they're suffering is going to continue, unfortunately.
We missed some of the tail end of what you said because you fell off and then you popped right back on, Brother Muhammad.
Oh, okay. I was saying that, the problem is a collective problem because the mayor, the city council, they fail. And it's not just one mayor, it's a whole line of mayors, a whole line of city council people. Instead of understanding that, those that are in the county government, their aim is your destruction, to keep you in that position. So if you don't want to offend or you don't want to do something that they may not like, but yet you're staying in that condition where your people are actually suffering, then that condition is going to stay there until somebody be able to stand up and say enough is enough and is willing to pay that price to make the proper changes. We worked on the ground there, and our people there are beautiful people, but it's a lack of knowledge. That is hurting them is a lack of knowledge, and then is that fear of, I don't want to make this person mad or this person not like me, for fear that they're going to do something else against me. Well, you have a whole city. You have a whole city. There's things that you can do. You just got to stop being afraid of those who don't like you anyway. and do what you got to do for yourself. And that will benefit, us as the people as a whole, because the people there in East St. Louis are definitely suffering, definitely suffering. And I rest my mic.
You know, I'd like to ask you a question since you've been there, and I actually have been to East St. Louis twice. But you keep saying that there are things that they could do. What are some of those things?
I would say the first thing is that they should do is break away from that county and stand on their own 2 feet. The money that the state government is giving to them is not what they should get. So by being a part of this county, and then this county has the ability to find you for not having this to their standard or not having that to their standard, and take a lot of these lots that are open. I mean, they have a casino that's, quote unquote, downtown on the riverfront, but they're doing nothing with it. They're doing nothing with it. There's a lot of beautiful land that can be developed, but they're not doing it. I mean, you go downtown, you see all these empty buildings, empty banks. I mean, everything just empty, just empty. So you have infrastructure that you can do things with, but you have to be, you have to have a active imagination of what can be done to attract more business, to attract better jobs, and you have to do a little risk. You have to do a little risk instead of just letting things sit the way it is, because nothing's going to change that way. And, this is a conversation that me and the last mayor had extensively. Everything that I said, he agreed with. Everything that I said, he agreed with. But his end of the day issue was, how am I going to deal with it when the white folks in the county say, no, we don't like this, and then they try to stop us from getting the little money that we do get. So, it's like we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. So my thing was, well, do it anyway, because you really don't have a choice. You really don't have a choice. You got to do it anyway. And, I'm like, well, sue them. Just like other states have sued, counties have sued states and back and forth, sue them, take them to court and sue them. Well, our money is tight. It's always this is tight. It's always that is tight. Well, do some creative financing. Think outside of the box, because you're in a struggle for your life, but you're trying to make somebody happy that's never going to be happy with you. They're never, because they left their city because more of us came. And so they had to leave. And that waterfront is big money. If it is properly developed, that is big money. And sooner or later, they're going to figure out how to take it right out from under you, because you're doing nothing with it and you're afraid to do the things that need to be done. So that's where it's at.
All right, thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
It's hard for me to believe that this group has nothing to say.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm multitasking. I'm listening to y'all, but I'm also listening to Blight read this story about unicorns. So,
I love unicorns.
so I'm trying to do both, man. My bad. But just to Blight, hold on for 1 second. Just to piggyback though on what you're saying, that's why a lot of they're gentrifying neighborhoods that they see value in. So when you were talking about the waterfronts, Brother Muhammad, that's what makes Harlem um so appealing, because it's very close to Midtown Manhattan or the places where people got to work that make a lot of money. Okay, and likewise Bed-Stuy, same thing. East New York, they're not going right now because that's about a 1 hour and some change train ride into Manhattan. So it's like, who they don't want to gentrify that right away. Okay. And when we see value in what we have and hold on to it and develop it, like you said, and that's when we'll really have power. But until then, yeah, I mean, I yield with that.
Yeah, I think that's the main key right there. Because even when you own stuff, and instilling in your future generations the value of what you own is super duper critical. You don't have. I think Black folks spend so much time like we gotta start over and rebuild from scratch. Well, I'm like, yeah, we got a whole lot already as it is. We're not starting with nothing like a lot of immigrants are coming in with $25 in their pocket and starting with nothing, and then passing us up within 20 years. So the good news is we do have some resources. We do have some. It's not maybe they ain't in the greatest condition. Maybe they're not. Maybe they weren't worked the right way. Maybe there wasn't a lot of vision with it. But you have some resources that you need to try to work and do something with. And I think, unfortunately, Black folks have this mindset: I'm just going to start it from the beginning and do it my own, and do it on my own, and figure it out myself. And you've got some great examples from your past and from your past history that you can look to give you kind of a guide. I mean, no, how was Harlem built? Harlem wasn't built out of nothing. Third Ward wasn't built out of nothing. They came, people had some vision, had some ideas, took some risks, tried some things, and some things worked out, some things didn't. But I think it was from the mindset of, hey, how in the heck can we build something? Because we have no choice. I think part of Black folks' problem is we have too much damn choice. And instead of saying, hey, I'm gonna try to figure it out, know where I'm at, now let's pick up my ball and go home and go someplace else and invest in somebody else, which is it's a recipe for disasters, unfortunately.
Carlton, you're on mute. I don't know you.
No, I was about to say, just ask the New Yorkers. I have no idea about New York history, man.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
Houston, I know about it, but New York, nah.
Right. Me neither. And Columbus got its share of problems with the police right now, with gentrification. It's just it's crazy here. It is so crazy here. And so I don't know if like a few years ago I just wasn't paying attention. But it seems like lately, especially with those murders of those two Black men within 2 weeks of each other, one at the hands of the county sheriff's office and the other one with Columbus police. It's just, I mean, it's horrible here.
Who controls downtown Columbus now? I know that the LGBTQ, they got the short north, right?
No, not anymore.
Who's in charge of that now?
Probably the well-to-do white folks who gentrified it.
No, that's still LGBTQ. The short north, they still have a stronghold on that, and this continues to spread to like the Old Town East area.
I think that
Who's downtown now?
Downtown is wealthy people that are moving into those overpriced new condos that no one else can afford.
Yeah. I didn't see the short north like that, Regina, and maybe it's just because of the shifting in like businesses and where businesses are located. That area of the short north, from like the Cap, on up, it seems like that's like a one like demographic of people. And then when you get to the area like where the LG, I don't know who the P people are, but LG, that community, well, like where the Union is, and then up moving from there, like closer to Fifth Avenue, what was called the Garden District at some point. Seems like it's another demographic, but maybe, I haven't gotten down there very much during this pandemic, so maybe I'm off. I don't know. But it just seemed like the Short North has changed so much, where it used to be like quaint shops and cool restaurants, independently owned restaurants. It's just so much more commercial now. But maybe that had to do with the LGBTQ community. Maybe. I don't know.
A lot of that also has to do with Ohio State and university partners. So they really did intentionally, because Damon and James might remember, campus used to be party city, bars. It was just bars,
pretty
bars,
grimy.
bars, the
Pretty
bookstore and
grimy.
bars. So
Yeah.
they did go through a very intentional planning phase where they were serious about that. We are not the party school. And that was a national campaign, because there was some type of riot, a football game, and kids went nuts and tore up the campus, and then donors start complaining. Parents was like, I'm not sending my child there. So then the university took on this really, really strong initiative, I think in concert with the city council and police department in some ways as well, because the
Yeah.
North used to be like crackhead
Gang.
row.
Yeah, and gang
So,
activity.
and they completely went through and got rid of all of those types of people, got rid of all of the poor Black people, all the single moms living in, subsidized housing in the area. That was very intentional, and that was a group effort with our leaders.
Yeah. I'm starting. What's interesting is what's now taking place on Long Street,
Yeah.
in between the Lincoln Theater and OSU East.
Yeah.
That stretch, because that's being gentrified. But I saw that coming. They pretty much announced that. Like, they pretty much announced that that was what was coming, and OSU was a part of that. Once they got that hospital and renamed it OSU East and all this stuff, they started saying like, hey, we're here, but we're also going to be, good neighbors and redevelop this neighborhood. And so what's starting to happen is that they're going to start growing towards downtown, and then downtown Columbus State going to start growing towards OSU East, meet in the middle.
They're redeveloping, but not for the current neighbors. And so, I think this is really interesting. This is an area that I worked in for quite a while as a servant leader in my neighborhood or in my community. And one thing that I have always been challenged by, especially in the Near East and in the Linden area, specifically South Linden. So, the Near East side, I grew up on the North side, and that the whole Fair Housing Act has a lot to do with why I grew up on the North side and not the East side, like most other Black people. But there was a stretch for my entire childhood, teenagehood, early adulthood, where the East side was vacant, it was scary, it was prostitutes, it was drugs. So Black people who lived there are the ones who left and turned their backs on that neighborhood. And we can say the same thing about South Linden. It was Black people who lived there who left and just left the neighborhood up for exploitation or whatever. So gentrification is terrible. I agree. But what about from the time I was like 10 to my early 20s, that those neighborhoods sat vacant and were crime ridden and needed some development? And so then we get upset when the city and all, these public-private partners come in and redevelop, but not for us. And I understand, I get upset too, but then it's like, but where's our own accountability in that?
That's a repeating narrative, I think, in a lot of different communities and cities, all over. There was an incident that happened, and Regina, you might have remembered this. I think it was in 2019, maybe I think around the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, before the pandemic, about the $500,000 home in the hood.
Yeah.
and what and there was a black female developer who bought a house,
Yeah.
very cheap, tore it down and rebuilt a palatial home in the hood and sold it for $500,000.
I think it sold for more than $500,000, but so
Really? Maybe three quarters?
here's the thing though. On one hand, I applaud her because there's so many white developers getting over. So
Right.
yes, yeah, great that a black woman was able to make some space for herself in that lane, and be able to profit from it. And then kind of go back to what I was just saying. That neighborhood has needed reinvestment and development for generations. And
It does.
so who do you
Right.
it is unfair that
Yeah.
large developers get tax abatements when residents living there can't get any assistance to buy property or fix up the property they have.
Right. And that's what I was thinking about is like the seniors that live in that area who own their homes but don't have the money to do like major rehab to their homes. Like what happens, when a home in their area gets built and sold for so much money, to their ability to maintain and live in that area. It's real interesting. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I was like, oh, that sister did that. She's, carving out some space, in this area of development. I was like, at the time I'm celebrating her, but then I'm like, what's happening to like the older people who might own their homes in that area? I don't know. I don't know enough about real estate to like dive deep into that.
I just wonder, when do we as as a black community, because this isn't just Columbus, it's not just, the cities that we're all in. This is across the country and we know it's by design.
Yeah.
We stop leaving our neighborhoods? When do we start buying investment properties in these neighborhoods? When do we start, moving into these neighborhoods, even if we can afford something different? You know, it, Gentrification is it's complicated.
It is.
Yeah.
It's complicated, and I think a lot of it has to do with mindset too, of people. You know, uh, Land ownership is not really part of the discussion that is had with a lot of Black people who live in urban settings. And so I think that for people who grow up in those neighborhoods, they're trying to get out. They don't want to live in those neighborhoods. Ones who could grow up and can afford to buy property, it seems like they're trying to like get out of those areas because those areas are, you know, filled with crime. So then what Black people comes into these neighborhoods and buy investment properties.
Are black people still on the east side? I'm thinking about Linwood. I used to stay on Linwood between Main and the freeway.
Oh yeah.
That area is still black.
Yeah, for now.
Now,
Right, for now.
For now. And so that's kind of the area where this black woman has built this home. And so that's why some people are like, why would she do that? Because obviously it's going to increase property values. And then the people that are already living there are going to have to pay more in taxes and all this type of thing. But that neighborhood there's a documentary called Flag Wars
yeah,
that talks
I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
Flag Wars. Yeah.
yeah, a really good it's a really good documentary. And I actually, one of the people that are featured in the documentary is a man named Baba Shango Obadina, and he owns William H. Thomas Gallery. And I worked there for about 5 years and started the African Village Arts Festival while I was there. But he owns the oldest Black owned art gallery in the state. And so he really did a lot of resistance and advocacy when like the rainbow flag started to take hold in the neighborhood and pushed out the red, black, and green flag. So it's been a really interesting dynamic to watch that unfold over the last 10, 15 years.
It's called Flag Wars.
Yep.
Yeah, it's in the chat. If you click on that link.
And it's about Columbus.
Yeah.
About Columbus?
You know about Bashango, don't you?
Yeah, I know. I know about the art gallery and stuff.
Yeah.
I did not know that this documentary existed.
Yep.
That's crazy because I used to live not far from there. Wow. Yeah, and I used to live near near Brighton and 17.
So this is something else that I have encountered in working in like public service and service leadership. So like in the South London area, I had this. And so one of the things that used to drive me bad, because I grew up in that neighborhood as Black folks, these are my folks, my people, and going door to door to residents and talking to them about organized change and talking to them about, sign this petition, come to this meeting so we can, city council says they have this money, but they're not going to give it to us if we can't produce 50 people at the city council meeting. So, and then trying to get people to come to meetings, and the neighbors would consistently say, I'm not doing it. Well, why don't we have a litter campaign? Can you pick up the trash in your neighborhood? I'm not doing it. That's the city should do that for me. We would try to attract businesses, national chains into the neighborhood. And again, trying to get the residents to engage so that companies would come in. The neighbors were just like, I'm not interested. And so there's that. So again, I think we could talk about gentrification and we could talk about developers. I went back and saved my grandparents' house from public auction. So I'm in it for real. And I have real issues with developers right now and the perks and privileges they have. But at the same time, we are accountable. We live there. And what is the, I don't know. So when we have these conversations, at a certain point, it's just like, if we're not going to discuss our own role in this, what really is the point of the discussion?
And who is the we, Regina? And I think that's also.
Brother Muhammad, are you close?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and take us out. And if y'all want to keep the conversation going, we'll do that.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Excellent program. Excellent program. And as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings.
Peace.
Peace, bro.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.